Hey guys, how's it going? Sean back here again. So I had a little interesting run-in when I was on. Actually, first of all, I just wanted to address the fact that I realized I was testing my the levels of my audio, and I realized that this video does lag. Like I think the audio lags the video or something like that. So I do apologize for that. There's really nothing I can do to stop that because my laptop is rather old and it's a piece of crap. But anyway, I had an interesting run-in on, I don't know if you've ever heard, there's a site called Omegle where you can have random chats with people. And they have this thing which is called question mode, where people will ask questions and then they'll have two strangers come in and they will talk about that question. And I got into I got into a couple of good conversations, and one of them, the person had asked the question, choose one, heaven or hell. And being who I am, I chose hell, and the second person chose heaven, and we started arguing back and forth on the subject, and eventually it got into the whole faith debate, Catholics and all that stupid shit. I told him I was a Satanist just to piss him off, and yada 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 yada, and it got to the point where it was just annoying for me almost to the point, and then I remembered that every person is entitled to their own opinion. I really have no right to tell this person what he can or cannot believe in. And afterwards I felt like kind of a dick for saying what I did, because I was really going off on him. I'm like, oh, the Vatican, they're a bunch of warmongering douchebags, and the church has committed more atrocities than every government combined. Just the typical stuff that any person would say against the faith. Anyone would say that sort of stuff. And then I realized that this guy can believe, or girl can believe, whatever they want to believe. So I really can't infringe upon their rights, I suppose. But I mentioned to him a couple things, and it was funny because he was saying, "Oh, do Satanists, do they get married? Do they have kids?" He asked me, "Were my parents Satanists?" and all this stupid shit. I had him believing I was one, but it's funny because I think in real life people might think I am, because I don't know if you can see, but I do have right there, a Slayer t-shirt on. They are my favorite band. And people have said that Slayer have been Satanists and stuff like that because of, for example, on their Rain and Blood album, they had a song called Angel of Death, which was inspired by, I can't think of his name, but he was a doctor who worked for the Nazis, who was responsible for some of the experimentation, or I shouldn't say a lot of the experimentation that happened on the people who were imprisoned in the concentration camps. And they just sung about him it was a cool theme. Like, Slayer have said that one of the most consistent themes through all their albums has been death. And Angel of Death certainly is one. But for me, it kind of brought up this whole idea of how, because before this conversation that I had with this kid, another conversation came up where someone asked, they said, your favorite band, and I said Slayer, and then someone else said something else, and they're like, oh, why would you listen to Slayer? They're fucking evil, demonic music, and I'm like, yeah, but it's actually got some balls to it. And they didn't like that too much. And so for me, religion and metal have all, I shouldn't say for me personally, but for like the world, religion and metal have gone hand in hand. Like, I think the first band to really utilize religious themes to any degree in their music was Black Sabbath, because they were the first ones to use the inverted cross, and even the term Sabbath itself is used in the Catholic faith, Sabbath being Sunday, the holy day. But if you take black, which is obviously associated with the color of evil and darkness, and then the Sabbath, and you put those two together, you effectively have a very evil sounding name. And they were one of the first, they weren't even the first ones to receive controversy. It wasn't until the 80s when the PMRC came out, when a lot of the glam metal bands were receiving flack. Twisted Sister was one of them. Judas Priest was put on trial, I know. A lot of glam metal bands, though, from what I remember. But it was actually funny because I was reading I have a copy of Metal Hammer magazine, the January 2012 edition, and there was this article in there about, I forget what his name was, but he was an author in the, I want to say the 40s, 50s, and 60s perhaps, and he wrote a lot of, I guess, fantasy / demonic novels about the devil and stuff like that. And what I read was that I believe it was Geezer Butler. I think that they said it was him. He actually found some of his work and read it, and it actually inspired him to write the song Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. And effectively this author was in effect the reason why Black Sabbath developed this very dark, demonic image, and that effectively had its influence down the 40 decades down the road up until this point that metal has been. Like, many bands have utilized that. Slayer obviously being one of them. A lot of the early NWO BHM bands, New Wave of British Heavy Metal, for those of you who don't know what that stands for, Diamond Head, Saxon, Venom, Maiden, Priest, a lot of the bands like that, they utilize that dark imagery. And it's just funny to see where that comes from. Like, a lot of Christians and Catholics would never have believed that it was because of this imagery that's what inspired. Actually, no, sorry. I'm getting off point with what I was going to say originally. These people who created these images of demonic imagery were doing it in rebellion to the church. So effectively, and this is the most ironic part about the whole situation, if it wasn't for the Catholic Church, we wouldn't have metal like we do today. We wouldn't have Black Sabbath, because some person didn't like the church. There was obviously a lot of people who didn't back in the day, and they made these stories of this and that, and they made these images to just go against the church in any way possible that they could think of. And that just kind of went down the years, and it was picked up by different forms of media, and fortunately one of the mediums that picked it up was metal. Because originally some of the earliest forms of metal weren't really that dark. They were more, I would almost call them psychedelic metal, for lack of a better term, because in the, I think it was the mid-60s, I'm going to say, you had bands like Mountain, Blue Cheer, Cream, the Jimi Hendrix Experience, a lot of psychedelic rock, and some of those bands could have even be considered by today's standards to be psychedelic metal, because they utilized themes from psychedelic rock, obviously. But it was kind of it was a merger almost between psychedelic rock and demonic imagery that gave birth to what is now metal. And some of you may disagree with that statement. Some of you may like, I don't really give a shit, but it's just my point of view on that. But I actually said that to someone one day, because I was last year when I was in school, we were having this debate about it was stupid debates, like about legalization of pot, the drinking age, faith, religion, shit like that. And I brought up the point, someone said about how there's always been so much rebellion with the Satanists and people who believe in Satan. And I brought up the fact that if it wasn't for the Catholics and the Christians, like the Vatican itself, we wouldn't have this evil shit. It's effectively, it comes down to the fact that if you oversaturate a group of people with a certain thing for so long of a time, you're going to be wanting to break out and find something that just goes against it. that's where all these evil images came of, like the devil came, like the image of like the inverted cross, skulls, blood, guts, and gore. Like death metal bands are built upon that stuff. Cannibal Corpse became famous for some of their album covers because they were just so brutal and so intense. But it effectively came from people who were oppressed so long by this belief system that they wanted to break out and strive on their own. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I had a whole other idea I was going to talk about, but I might save that for another video, just because of this whole conversation I had with this kid on Omegle. Just kind of, it brought up ideas I had in the past and whatnot. He was hell bent that I was going to hell. He said, "Oh, I'll pray for you. I'll pray for your sins and all that shit." And I'm like, "No, dude, you should pray for yourself." So yeah, I don't think many people have viewed my videos yet. I've only uploaded, I think the first one I uploaded, I didn't use my headset. I just used the mic in my laptop, which is a piece of crap, and I probably should take that video off. I'm not sure. I don't think I have any views in these videos yet, and I honestly don't think I ever will, but hey, you know how that goes. But if anyone does view these videos and they have any questions or comments or anything like that, I'm not going to be begging for likes or favorites or subscriptions. I'm just curious about people's opinions on shit like that. So yeah, if you see this video and you have any concerns about my beliefs, feel free to leave a comment and I might respond to it. You never know. Alright guys, I'm out of here.